AI seems to be getting created by nearly every single big tech organization in the world at the moment. It's a big part of every single social media platform and single social media content created nowadays. We also found a brand new study from Peer Review Center. The study itself asked the questions of what the US public think about AI chatbots as a whole. As per the study, quote, the public's expectations with chatbots have not been positive for those as experts. Over 6 out of 10 AI experts who use chatbots, 61%, say that it is expected or is very helpful for them. A smaller scale of users in the general public, 33%, say that a fewer group reports that chatbots have been not too helpful. Still, the US adults who have used chatbots are more likely than experts to say these tools have been not too bad or not too helpful, 21% to 9%. The study itself asked people, do you think that we can AI has control over our lives? It sounded like most were asking whether they felt more comfortable with AI as a whole, with both groups claiming that they had, quote, they had little to no control over the sentiment of somewhat more than prevents the US adults in 59%. That, however, AI experts surveyed was 46%. So it's roughly, even across the public and across the actual experts that were interviewed or part of this survey, that it's roughly about 60% for the actual public and 46% for the experts, that say they have very little control over the sentiment in regards to what's actually and how people think about chatbots as a whole in the US. Smaller shares of both groups think that the control over whether AI is used in their lives, 40% of the general public and 23% of AI experts say they have a great deal or quite a bit of control, with it sounding like a growing percentage of the US public are more worried or concerned about the increase in AI in our daily lives, with the main worries coming from job loss, deepfakes, and misinformation. As per the study, more than half of US adults are very concerned about AI estimating or removing a small amount of shares, versus the small amount of experts surveyed, with 56% versus the 25%. The public also fear a loss of human connection when more than the experts, with it being 57% to 37%. 6 out of 10 experts say that they are extremely or very concerned about data misuse, and roughly 2/3 say about the AI being imposed or using deepfakes and using it to create I guess in some ways you could say unreal or faked or ungenuine ads, videos, etc. We talked about it last episode, where we talked about there's been a lot of ads that have been used to kind of shill products and connect with products from the likes of Joe Rogan, Mr. Beast, etc. And it's caused quite a lot of issues and concern there. When the study asked how will AI impact the US over the next 20 years, fully 50% of the AI experts surveyed said that AI will be a very or somewhat positive impact on the United States over the next 20 years. The comparison was only 17% among the general public. Conversely, 35% of the US adults believe that AI will have a negative impact upon the country across the next 2 decades, compared to only 15% of experts. The public is more likely than experts to say that AI impact on the US will be equal or positive or negative, with 33% versus 23%, or they are unsure with a 16% to a 6%. And I think this is one of the things that I still wanted to cover it on the show, but it's one of those things where I think when you interview experts, I think you can get a kind of, I guess in some ways, tinted view or tinted study, because they're of course going to say, right, because they have a further understanding of AI, they have a further understanding of what its capabilities are, where we are at it, where it's likely to potentially grow to. So I think it's a kind of, I wouldn't go as far to say it's an unfair comparison, but I think you're stacking the odds in your favor by interviewing AI experts rather than general public, right? Because general public, I think, will have a more generalized view, a more generalized thought process when it comes to AI as a whole, and that's probably a more stronger gauge on what's the average layman likely to understand. Is it just for tech quote unquote geeks to understand? And that may be your advantage as a business owner, perhaps, but also we're in a position where there is quite a lot of skepticism, there is quite a lot of concern about how narratives can be controlled, as the studies shared, that misinformation, those deepfakes we've already mentioned. Of course, that does bring up the question of job security as a whole, or job sectors, and it was asked during the study found itself that, quote, we are explored experts viewed by job sector is about 6 out of 10 experts surveyed who work for a private company or business. 63% believe that AI will impact the US in a positive way. Among those who work in colleges and universities, that share is about 55%. That then led on to, of course, thinking about will AI specifically lead to more, less, or the same amount of jobs as a whole? As per the study, overall, 64% of US adults say that over the next 20 years, AI will lead to fewer jobs in the US, whilst 5% think it will lead to more jobs. And more than 1 out of 10 say it will either make no difference, being 14%, or they are unsure, so that would then leave 16%. AI experts' opinions are overly mixed. Roughly 4 out of 10, 39%, foresee fewer jobs due to AI over the next 2 decades. A smaller share of 19% believe it will lead to more jobs, and 1/3 think that it's likely not to make much of a difference. Looking more detailedly into the roles for those that study that we're specifically worried about, the 73% of each of the general public and AI experts surveyed, 73% of each of the general public and the AI experts surveyed think that AI will lead to fewer cashier jobs over the next 20 years. Journalists also is a occupation that will be exposed to automation. About 6 in 10 of the general public, 59%, and AI experts being 60% say that AI will lead to fewer journalism jobs over the next 20 years. Truck drivers, lawyers, medical doctors were also all talked about in the study. However, of course, in my view, I personally think that the AI experts quoted are very close, is very close to likely happen. Here is the quote. Quote, AI is going to take over a lot of jobs. Of course, it's going to create some new ones, but that doesn't mean it's going to match that. Generating maybe 10 jobs at the same time, we're also going to be taking away thousands of jobs. For example, truck drivers, they will most likely, in his view, be gone in 10 to 20 years, probably. If you think, are we going to replace them, and what are we going to do? So yes, of course, AI is going to create some jobs. However, as we talked about before, it's likely to wipe out a large percentage of the lower skill, bottom of the barrel, paid minimum wage-esque jobs, right? So your things that would be in theory done by corporations now to pay very little, pay minimum wage, pay as little as they can, because they're just trying to get hours and manpower specifically. As tech and IA becomes better, leaving most of the creative and the higher end jobs likely to be done by people with AI's help. Looking into the data, for example, so analyzing data could be an example of how you could use AI. Also, I think personally in my field, in pre-production, for example, or where stock footage would be potentially used in your post-production process, for example, I think it's likely to potentially use that, and it could be a really good, useful tool. Sadly, the matter of the fact, if you like it or not, AI is going to keep getting better and better. So many of us, like other tech before, will need to choose if we're willing to add value to our clients and focus on not being replaceable, or whether we are unfortunately going to get replaced by AI. Overall, I think the market isn't going to care if AI takes your job. If it takes and makes a service faster, cheaper, or better, then it will be used. Of course, it's down to each case-by-case basis, but if you have a job today or you run a business today and you're worried and you need to see how you can make moves to make sure you're still making money and adding value to your clients for many more years to come, one of the key things is focusing on your relationships with your clients and your customers and that you serve, and always ask the question, am I, specifically as a provider, giving that client a great deal or a good deal when it comes to whatever it is you offer to them, right? I think the only world where you're replaced by AI is if you get complacent, if you get focused. And a lot of the things I'm doing at the moment, a lot of things I'm focusing on, is thinking about how can I take accountability to the changes in the market. I can't do much about Trump's tariffs, for example, right? That, of course, is going to affect market confidence, business confidence. What I can do is continue to focus on what I know have worked traditionally and historically for the business to continue to grow and continue to scale and continue to move forward, right? This show being one of them. But if I'm seeing AI become more dominant, and that is slightly concerning, then how can I potentially leverage AI to allow me to do my job better, allow me to add more value to my clients, but also to be able to constantly stay one step ahead when it comes to content creation, when it comes to marketing, when it comes to helping our clients be able to showcase and highlight what they are looking to promote and highlight at the time.